Hello, welcome to Cinephile Entertainment. I'm the Cinephile critic, and today I'll be reviewing this movie. I guess you have Bob Marley in here? Bob or that? Yardie. So Yardie is a film directed by Idris Elba and stars Emil Amin as Dennis Campbell, Stephen Graham as Rico, Mark Reynolds-Smith as Rags, Naomi Aki as Mona, Chantal Jackson as Yvonne, and Calvin Demba as Styx. So Yardie is a film where the story starts off in Jamaica. And what you have is you have these two rival gangs. There is this big war that's happening between the two gangs for control over narcotics. And so what ends up happening in the warfare between the two gangs reach, a point where innocent children are being threatened due to crossfire. These kinds of spawns a type of a ceasefire to squash their beef and be more peaceful. That's where Dennis Campbell comes in. His brother is a sound guy. His brother is very much, a peaceful man. He sets up a sound system. He calls for peace. Everyone's enjoying it, dance. The man come up. They seem like there's a resolution between the two gang members. But as that all unfolds, something happens to Dennis' brother. Dennis sees the person who does it, basically is trying to get closure for what happened to his brother. The younger version of Dennis when he witnessed trauma. And then you have Dennis when he's older, still dealing with the grief of his brother's death. When he comes to London, he thought he has escaped his past, but he finds out that his past has caught up with him. And so he has to deal with a lot of things that he thought he had left behind in Jamaica. So that's kind of like what this story is about. Now, one of the things I would say is I absolutely love the opening act of this film. I think that Idris Elba as a director done a very, very good job. I'm not sure if this is his first directing job, but as a directing piece, I think this film is done well. I like the way how you have the opening scene, the lush environment against the backdrop of, people who are living in poverty, who don't have a lot, but they are getting by. And I also love the way how music and dance is stitched in at various stages of this production, because especially when it comes to Jamaica, dance music is part of the culture. So I like the fact the camera was looking at this environment, and I felt that no time in when he was filming this environment, he was making a criticism of the poverty or the situation that certain people grow up in. I felt that the camera was unbiased to a good extent. Parts of Jamaica that they showed, I really actually appreciate that, because it's very easy to just go to the impoverished parts and look at the poverty, focus on that, and put that into your film and give that as the reason why this particular person is going along this path. And I like the fact that that wasn't the case. So that part of the film I actually really liked. When it comes to Dennis' character played by Emil Amin, I felt that he done an excellent job. I thought that his acting wasn't over the top. It was very restrained. It was what the character needed. I liked the way how he played his character. There was not a point, even as the story unfolds and I had particular issues with certain parts of the story, when it came to the main character, the main protagonist, I had no issues with the way how his character was. I felt that he brought a very sympathetic view of his character to some extent. It's like in some ways he is on a decent path, and then it doesn't take a lot for his path to start moving in a different direction. And the way how he played that, I felt was done very, very well. For the most part, the cast and crew in this film is a bit hit and miss for me. Some of the cast members was really good, like Yvonne, and I would say most people who were from the Jamaican side or in Jamaica, their acting was a lot better than the English side. And the reason why I said is like this group of 3 boys in England, like one of them is fine, but the other 2, they're terrible. I did like Stephen Graham acting acting in this, because he reminds me of those people that tries too much to be part of the culture, but they're really not, and they do it in a disrespectful way. I like the way how he done it, because he done it good, as he should. It was very irritating, but realistic way of how some people behave, because they think they can talk this bad man talk. Yeah, I like the way how he acted his character. Like, it met the brief of what he was supposed to be. The cinematography in Jamaica is absolutely beautiful. I love the way how, you know, how clear and crisp the camera is. It picks up a lot of details. It takes in a lot of the environment and atmosphere of what Jamaica is. And then when you come to London, it's more desaturated. It's kind of like that London feel that you get with a lot of films when it's filmed in London, and you just have this cold blue type of filter on the camera. That's kind of like how it is. I did like the fact that it was in the 70s and 80s that it was filmed. So looking back at some of the clothing that people were wearing and cars that people were driving, even color palettes, the wallpapers and stuff like that, it was actually quite amusing. I was like, oh, okay, this is what the 80s were like, and the 70s. I kind of like seeing the past in that way. One thing I will say that was a hit and miss with me was the story. Guns, you can get them in the UK. They're not as common because they are banned. It was easy to get hold of guns. Guns were used quite a lot. Every bad man in this film seemed to have a gun. I felt that was a bit disingenuous, especially when it comes to England. You know, guns existed in the 80s in England, and usually when gun shootout happens, it kind of is one-sided, you know, because you're not going to have other people having a gun. You know, gun shootout happens and other people with guns are going to come out and shoot. It's just, it doesn't happen like that in the UK. I just felt that the whole reliance of guns in this situation was too much. Biggest issue that I had with this film, consequence. There's not enough consequence. Too many people died for there to be no consequence. That is the type of thing that I wish that they had in that film. There's not enough consequences, and it doesn't matter how much I like the character D or Dennis Campbell, his action, there's not enough consequences within the story for it to be a complete story. Certain characters in this film, mainly the guys that Rico has under his belt, I feel that they're not subtle enough. The whole plot of drugs, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't great either. The story is centered around drugs, but drugs is more of the plot device in order to move characters and storylines to a particular place. Plot with drugs does get convoluted at point. I felt story could have just been slightly better. I love the storyline of Dennis. I like the art. I like the character Yvonne, how I feel with this film, consequence or people's action. If they had done that and they'd done that well, then this film would be much, I would have rated this film a lot higher, because there's so much that I like in this film. I love the culture. I love the way how this film is filmed. I love the cinematography, especially when it's in Jamaica. I love the color palettes. I love the era of the 70s and 80s. If this is Idris Elba's first directing job, then I think he done a very good job. And that's why I'm going to rate this film as E for entertaining. Now, one of the things I did like about this film is they didn't take it to how some Jamaican films can be filmed, very gangster, very minimal in content, drugs, bad man. It has a bit more content to it, complexity in this film. But it could have been more if they had spent a little bit more time looking at the story and plot and how things unfold, especially when it comes in terms of consequence, and that is what is really lacking in this film. So have you seen this film? What do you think about this film? Let me know in the comment sections, and thank you for watching my review. If you liked what you saw, then please subscribe. If you're thinking, I'll come back, I'll check you out again, I'll check you out, then hopefully I'll see you again. And remember, until next time, keep safe.